And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to Stripe Dev Chats. Today, it's going to be me, Mike from Stripe, and then we also have Joyce, Head of Developer Relations at Postman. Thanks so much for joining us, Joyce.
Hi, glad to be here.
Yeah, I kind of introduced you, but shoot, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Joyce. I'm the head of developer relations at Postman, like Charles said. I am based in San Francisco, and I'm, I don't know, like excited to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I didn't prepare anything, so hopefully you guys have a topic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like this is my favorite topic, I think, which is exploring APIs with, and I'm not biased at all when it comes to like Postman type stuff, but like, I don't know, exploring APIs with API client. In this case, we're going to be talking about Postman. Again, not all biased, not wearing a t-shirt that has Postman on or anything like that. But before we get into it, we have some updates. So let's just hop into some updates. I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen. So let's see. We'll hit the share button. Oh, and here we go. So first and foremost, Stripe apps. So we recently released the Stripe apps beta, which allows you to build an app on top of Stripe inside of the Stripe dashboard. This is essentially the successor of Stripe extensions, which allowed you to extend Stripe. Now you can build extensions. You don't have to stand up your own services. You don't have to worry about building out servers or anything like that. You can actually compose your own app inside of the Stripe dashboard using some React components that we've already built with you, So there's an SDK. Try it out. Super easy to use. If you're interested, go ahead, go to stripe.com/apps, and then go ahead and read the docs. Speaking of docs, and I may have shared this last time, but I'm going to share it again because it's really, really cool. MarkDock is generally available. Now, if you haven't heard of MarkDock, MarkDock is what we use to actually power Stripe's documentations, which are pretty good. So with MarkDock, you can take that same powerful, flexible framework and build your own Markdown-based authoring system, your own docs, essentially, with the same stuff that we use. Now, in terms of Postman stuff,
Wait, question about MarkDock. Did you guys make MarkDock?
Yes, we did.
MarkDock? Okay. Oh, neat.
We did. It's like maybe. Mike, do you know a bit more about it? I actually haven't used MarkDock before.
Yeah.
I've benefited from it.
But. Yeah, so MarkDock started out as a Stripe project to, like Charles said, to help author our documentation that's used on stripe.com/docs. It is a superset of Markdown, which means it uses all of the syntax from Markdown, if you're familiar with that, but it adds some essentially extensions onto the Markdown language, which allow you to do things like add dynamic content to your Markdown by importing reusable widgets. You can also add extensions for testing so that before you deploy your documentation, you can be sure that the MarkDock that you've written, the Markdown that you've written is valid and won't produce broken documentation when you deploy it. It's also available open source too. So if you want to inspect the code that powers MarkDock, or if you want to extend it or submit changes, things like that, you can do that on GitHub as well. And you can access all of that at markdock.io. And the GitHub link is in the navigation there up at the top of the screen as well.
Yep.
I'm sure MarkDock is super famous. I'm just a bad web dev and I don't know all the technology. Cool.
There's too many things to pay attention to all at once.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's pretty new. I think we're all learning it. But also we have a meetup. Postman has a meetup, something like this, but in IRL, in the Postman office in San Francisco, Wednesday, June 22nd. So there's going to be a few guests. There's going to be Arlemy from Postman, myself from Stripe. I'm going to be talking about how to compose payment flows using Postman. We'll do a little bit of that today, but it's going to be different if you go to the meetup. And there's going to be Nicholas from Typeform as well. So if you happen to be in San Francisco, definitely check that one out. That seems super cool. I'm really excited.
Yes, come hang out with us.
Yes, definitely come hang out with us. It's gonna be great. In addition to the meetup, Postman also has a workshop where they're going to be talking about API first design and development. And it looks like we got, who are these people?
So the people in the picture right here are Postman people, but I do want to give a shout out. CJ Avila is going to be giving an API first talk. And it's really interesting that you brought up MarkDock because I'm not in the payment industry. I'm not in fintech. So I don't really know that space, but in just general tech, Stripe is known for a couple things that they're just like consistently named. One is docs. The documentation has led the way from like many, many moons ago. And then the other thing that people talk about Stripe all the time is about their API. It's about their API as a product, API first. And so this is about API first. So we had to snag somebody from Stripe to talk about how you guys think about APIs.
Yes, that's going to be great. I mean, CJ himself is like pretty involved. So that is going to be a very, very exciting workshop. So definitely check that one out. Sign up for tickets. Like, go ahead and do it. Actually, let me go ahead and drop this inside of the chat, just in case anyone wants to sign up right now.
Yeah, come hang out, especially if you're in San Francisco. It's a hop and a skip away. Actually, I don't know where most of the people are watching this stream.
Yeah, we got some people watching. So, folks in the audience, where are you? Are you in San Francisco or somewhere else? So let me go ahead. I'm going to drop the meetup link as well. And meetup. All right, cool. All right, cool. So let's see here. So we have our, we got the meetup, we got the API first design, which is all super cool, but let's get into the nitty gritty of it, which is exploring APIs with Postman. But what even is Postman? So I'll just turn it over to you, Joyce. What is Postman? Why should someone use it? What's great about it?
Well, I have a canned answer about what is Postman, but like honestly, it really depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to like a developer, I'll usually say it's an API platform. Like we just talked about API design. A lot of folks know, like, of course, if somebody's like, oh, do you know Postman? Everyone like nods their head and then they're like, it's an API client. And so there's a lot of definitions I could give, but I think a definition by not a noun, but by a verb is like exploring APIs. Devs use Postman to explore APIs, poke at them, write tests, yada, yada. That's a terrible answer.
Disagree. It's a great answer. That represents mostly what I do with Postman. I mean, I do a good amount of stuff with Postman, but like, I don't know. I started off with it and I was like, oh, this is like curl with like with the UI. Cool. And actually,
knowing the developer crowd, that's more than enough to get people interested to get their hands dirty in it too.
Right? Totally. I mean, I don't know. I like not having to write code unless I actually have to write code. Does that make me a bad dev? That I just don't. I try to avoid it. It's like,
I think it makes you optimized.
Okay, cool. It's like it's a tool of last resort, and Postman allows me to not have to use it too much. Cool. So I guess we should like look at it. Right? Does that make sense?
Look at it. Are you sharing your screen?
I can share my screen. Let me go ahead and like share my screen. But before I share my screen, Mike, do you use Postman?
Yeah. So funny enough, I have spent a lot of my career being the front-end developer foil for my API developer friends, which usually means that I get to ask all the questions about like, hey, what does the API do? Are we using it correctly? That sort of a thing. So I end up being the consumer of APIs a lot of the time. And a tool like Postman is really nice for that because like Joyce was kind of saying, like poking at an API and seeing what it does is really what I'm interested in, when I'm building interfaces. It's like, what data am I actually going to get? Am I providing the right information? Are they, if I'm getting an error, what's actually coming back? And then go and sort of deal with it from the front end side of things. So yeah, it's definitely in the arsenal of tools that I use to make messes and kind of things in the various ways that I do for sure.
Cool. That's so interesting because like what you described is probably like 80% of scenarios. The API engineer or like I don't know, some people call it back end, some people call it like middle end, like whatever. The API engineer has the control. They control all the APIs. And then they're like, okay, you front end developer, you can consume my API and use Postman. You product manager, you can do user acceptance testing. And all these people consume. But I've heard it before where a front end dev is the one like using Postman to deliver recs to the API engineer. So like people,
that's
yeah, it just
interesting.
depends on your team.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it definitely goes both ways. I've been in positions where I've worked with on teams that are fairly large, where you have the luxury of lots of people to work on the front, middle, and back tier, and have people building like backends for specific front ends and things like that. And I've also been in positions where I'm sort of the one-man army, just go figure out the problem and consume the documentation in the API as well. And I think the way that the tools are used might vary a little bit for the different scenarios, but definitely like helps to get the job done much faster than sending a curl request or hoping for the best.
Oh yeah, sending a curl request is a fraught process. After a while, I mean, if you have only one thing to do, it's like fine. It's just like I need one API call. But when do you need one API? I mean, I very rarely have just one API call and that's it.
Yeah. I always worry about my my comrades who can remember how to write a curl request off the top of their head. I will never ever remember all the flags and fields and things that go into the command line there.
Totally. Okay, so I'm going to show. Okay, I will show Postman, but before we got a very important message from Stephen Lynch, based in San Francisco. So check out the meetup if you're around. Big shout out for the cat in the background. SF cat game is super strong. So yes. Very important.
Honey is famous.
Hopefully we'll get another appearance of another cat.
That's right. Mine are both in arm's reach. They'll show up before long.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, cool. So Postman, exploring APIs. Okay, so let's do this. So I am on postman.com/explore. Okay. And you can explore API. So it looks like in addition to just like being a API client that I think you can download, there's like a client you can download if you don't want to have to use a web-based client. I'm on the web-based client. It looks like you can also just kind of explore different APIs. So there's Postman, there's Notion. So it's like a little bit of a tool here. You can see all the different APIs here. So let me go ahead. I'm going to look for Stripe.
There it is.
Stripe Dev. Here we go. So like that was the Postman API Network, and that one's pretty new. Somewhat not that new, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your definition of new is.
Yeah.
But if somebody has a public API, I expect them to be in this network. I mean, really, like, shame on you if you don't have your documentation published here. But also, I use the network to search for fun. Like, I'm in DevRel, right? So I search for funny examples of APIs when I'm doing demos. I personally publish. I'm the official publisher of the Rick and Morty API in the Postman network. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Is that a real thing? That's not a real thing, is it?
It's a real thing. They have a REST and a GraphQL API.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is and
it's official because it's a community API, to be clear. I don't work at Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay. I was about to get very, very excited.
No.
Is this it? I don't know.
It's under Joyce.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to check it out. I didn't know there was a Rick and Morty API, and anything Rick and Morty, you got to check that one out. So,
Joyce, what's the process like to submit a new API to the network?
Anyone can do it. So, which is why I did the Rick and Morty. It's kind of like creating a GitHub repo, like a public repository. Like anyone can create it, but some people just have junk stuff out there, and then other people have jewels like Rick and Morty.
Okay. So, okay, great. So this is not at all where I thought we were going. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm free flowing here. You said Rick and Morty. I'm going to try I want to hit this API at least once. So from here, I can just create a fork, right? Live stream test. And I'm going to just throw it in here.
Yeah, not to like continue the GitHub analogy too far, but like when you're in a GitHub repository, you can either fork or you can clone. I think those are the two actions. And so in this case, you're going to fork it to your own workspace.
Awesome. Okay, so now I got my own little clone here. Oh, fork. I have my own fork. Not a clone. Okay. I always get those mixed up. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to get all of the characters. Let's see here. Do I need like...
Use the GraphQL one. I think I don't get a chance to play around with GraphQL very much, so like it's just real fun.
Wait.
Postman
supports GraphQL?
Come on, you knew that, Charles.
For real?
Go under the body and we
All right.
auto fetch the schema. So even if you don't know how the Rick and Morty API is, like what the data structure is, you can.
Yeah.
Do you know GraphQL? I don't want to make you do GraphQL if you're like, I don't even know what to. Okay, never mind.
No,
I'm not the person to teach. Mike, do you know GraphQL?
I do, enough to be dangerous, and probably an even better idea to put me on live on stage here. We could figure it out.
Okay,
that's cool.
All
Look
right,
at that. You're already getting results.
Look at this. Okay, so I got so I'm pulling in any characters with the name of Rick.
There's lots of Ricks.
The count of Ricks. Okay, I'm getting I guess this is an array of names and locations and episodes. Okay, cool. Let's see what we got here. Okay. I didn't know there were this many Ricks. I'm like very far behind. Have
you seen the show?
I've seen like a few episodes. I saw the episode with the dog who wanted to know where his stuff was.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great show. Wow. There are a lot of Ricks. I had no idea.
Yeah, this is really cool. So as opposed to then going and spinning up like, a dev environment locally and setting up API keys and figuring out URLs and whatnot, we essentially just had to know that this API existed, and we interpreted their looked at the GraphQL endpoint, and it just kind of told us what was available, right? And so you just hit send and it pulled back this information, right?
Yeah, I just hit send. That was it. I didn't do anything. Just click this button.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And now I'm just interacting with this GraphQL API, and it's GraphQL URL encoded form data. I guess raw if you just wanted to send like some text or some JSON or something like that. So this is pretty robust.
The Stripe API has like much more like RESTful, like a lot more of the types of APIs that I'm familiar with interacting with. This is just kind of like weird and trippy to look at the query. Even like the way the query's nested is kind of like weird looking to my eye.
It is. And also getting an error back as a 200 will never feel right. So
yeah, that's one of the funny things about GraphQL is it's flexible to a fault. Can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's cool that like this is one API call that pulled back a ton of information, right? Like rather than going and getting how many characters there are first and then how many fit this query and all that.
Traversing everything. Yeah.
That is nice. That is really nice. Okay, I just want to, REST is where I live at though. So this is pretty, okay. So this is pretty cool. Awesome. All right. That's pretty cool. So let's see here. So we got the Rick and Morty API, a little bit of a tangent there, but let's see. We also have the Stripe API. Actually, I already cloned this. I mean, I already forked this. I say that a lot, but if you wanted to fork this yourself, if you happen to be following along, you can go to Stripe Dev. Let's see. And then we have our profile here, and you can go to the one workspace that we have. And here are a bunch of different APIs that we have. And I think Joyce was going to give us, possibly threaten to give us critiques of our workspace if there were ever a time.
This is a beautiful workspace. There's a ton, like hundreds and hundreds of people have already forked your collection, so it's beautifully documented. And look, you can see me in the corner watching you.
Oh God. Oh, that's incredible. Cool. So these are just like, I think, we just have all of our old kind of like collections. And this is just like pretty much all of the Stripe APIs. I think in general, I think you could technically, I don't know, we could like almost do like GitHub, like fork our collections and then just like update them and then merge them back in maybe if we wanted to. But
yeah, so like you guys have a really nice archive by date of where your API is at a certain point in time, but other publishers will just update the same collection and then expect the people consuming their API to pull changes. What's that Stripe API demos? I haven't seen that collection before.
yeah, this one's actually new. So I think so I did do one stream with Postman where I talked about terminal stuff. And at the end of that stream, I just took all the stuff that I did and I just like put it in this new collection called Stripe API Demos. And I just kind of add stuff in here whenever I make a flow or like a collection that I think is kind of interesting. So yeah.
That's super helpful. Other API providers will just, you have it as like a folder, but some will just have collections or folders or even just a separate workspace that demonstrates an API workflow, because you can look at the reference and then be like, okay, I got an auth. So you go to the auth folder and then I gotta like pull my, like apply this token to like this other flow and just ordering the sequence, I think is really helpful for your devs.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we try to do. I like, yeah. So like we had this one where it's like, if you wanted to accept online payments, it's like, you got to create it. Then you got to like set the readers display, and there's a bunch of steps and it's all in order, and it's pretty, I don't know. I think it's pretty useful. Okay. So we got Stripe API collection here. So if you want to fork it, you can fork it by clicking on the 3 little dots and creating a fork. So that is that. So I guess what I was thinking we could do is like try and make up like a payment flow with Postman. Like, if we were just exploring it for the first time, and see if we can go from just like trying something out in Postman to like getting like a kind of like maybe like a working example or something like that. Could be pretty cool. And in general, if you like use Stripe, like a lot of people will use this thing called like Stripe Checkout, where it's like a pre-built payments page. It's pretty lightweight. It's like one API call, but I think we can challenge ourselves, and I think it's worth it to try and go through the dark arts of building your own payments page.
Hard mode.
This is actually hard mode. I don't know, like if a lot of users do it. So it's good to know. It's pretty useful. So let's see here. So we got all of our API endpoints, and I actually updated the collection the other day and I added 55 endpoints. It was a bunch of fun. It's mostly these Treasury ones for Stripe Treasury, which is
what does that mean?
Yeah, so Stripe Treasury is kind of interesting. So it's like I'm gonna be honest with you. I have never used Stripe Treasury.
I've gone pretty deep on it. I think I can help a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, you go, Mike.
Yeah. So Stripe Treasury is a broad set of APIs that allows you essentially to issue calls that would do things that are very similar to what you might do with a bank account. So you can do things like create accounts with their own routing and account number so that you could do ACH transfers. You can split up funds into several accounts. So there's lots of use cases for this sort of a thing, but maybe the most basic one would be something like a crowdfunding application. Let's say you had a bunch of users who are raising funds for their projects. You could use the Treasury APIs to spin up separate financial accounts for each of them. So you could fund each of these accounts separately, send funds to them, and then they would have their own sort of separate account that is something that they can pull funds from. Does that make sense?
Can you use Stripe APIs to launder money?
You should. I hope
you should not. Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's against the terms, of course.
Yeah, but I mean,
but you could.
I'm sure people would. I'm sure people would try. But to to that end, Stripes, we've got some pretty good machine learning engineers over here who are.
So don't even try it.
Don't even bother. We'll find you. Machine learning engineers are basically pulling in some Minority Report type stuff. They can see it before you do it. I'm kidding. That's not the case. But here's Stripe Treasury. Like Mike said, you can embed financial services in your platform. I think a lot of the times, like people will use it with this other Stripe product called Stripe Connect for the most part. Yeah. Is that the case?
Yeah. So one of the prerequisites for this is that you have to have a Stripe Connect application set up to use it. You have to use Stripe Connect Custom, which is sort of the most rigorous version of Connect, which basically means that you build the platform and you serve as the platform that other people would connect to with their Stripe accounts to create their bank accounts. And essentially you're with a Stripe Connect Custom, you're doing that in the most detailed way possible, setting up all the configurations necessary for it. Some other points that are maybe worth mentioning here too is that the accounts that you can create with Stripe Treasury are FDIC insurable. So you can, they're eligible for FDIC insurance, which is likely a requirement if you're doing something that involves bank accounts for legal reasons. Obviously, you should consult your legal squad if you're doing this. And it is a reasonable lift from a development standpoint. So you can see from the diagram here that like, while we do have APIs you can call to generate a checkout page with one call, this is something that requires a fair bit of planning and engineering effort to do, and is likely something you would want to embark on if you had a sizable engineering team that's sort of ready to tackle a fairly big task. Sort of parallel to building a bank in itself. It's a big effort of engineering. It's something that is worth consideration and planning, and also has lots of legal implications that you will want to be sure that you do in the right way for whatever your circumstances.
There's so much to learn.
There is.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone like knows like. Well, I'm sure there's someone. There's probably a few people that know like all of the products super well, like perfectly, where they can just spit out API endpoints and parameters off the top of their head.
Yeah,
they're probably on our support engineering team. Those people they're incredible.
Your API is one of the more extensive ones, like in terms of public API. Like it's pretty extensive.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of API endpoints at this point. But that's cool. So Stripe Treasury, go build a bank, basically, is what it seems like, or some bank-like infrastructure, I guess, with API calls, which is that's a lot. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from Treasury for now. We're not going to explore that one today.
It's a big enough bread box that you wouldn't want to do it on a live stream for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we get very far. Cool. But we do have like multiple payment APIs, and you can explore them from this collection. I'm thinking so we'll go with the payment intent API. So like, let's see here. So if we go to create a payment intent, do we have any documentation on this? Yes. Oh, this is nice. So it creates a payment intent object. And this is one of the other things I like about Postman is like, you can put docs inside of your collections, which is pretty useful, I would say. But is it like common at all, Joyce? Do people generally do this, or is it kind of?
If they don't, they absolutely should. Like, how are you supposed to use this endpoint? Yes, you see the metadata, you see the method, you see the endpoint. Like, how are you supposed to know what this is? Like, of course, include your docs.
Totally. Okay, cool. Yeah, we have like
look at all those, like what is this? Look at all those parameters be like required, optional.
I mean, it's only like 100. So it's only about 100 parameters. So let's see here. Okay, cool. So with payment intents, there are a lot of different optional parameters that you could add. A lot of it's just like they're like, nested objects or whatever. But you really only need 3, right? So you need an amount, which is like in the lowest denomination of the currency. And then you need a currency. So in this case, like the amount would be like, I guess here, this is like $10, right? Currency is USD. So it's always a 3-letter code. And then there's like, you need to tell Stripe which payment methods you'll accept, because there's like more than just like one. Like you can accept cards, you can accept debits, you can accept like you can accept lots of stuff like Klarna, you can accept Affirm as of last week. So you need some way to specify that. If you want the easy way out, you just like specify automatic payment methods enabled and you said it's true. and that just says, hey, go look into the customers, into your platform's dashboard, and just pick out whatever you selected. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. So let's see here. And it's just like does the API call, and I get an error because I forgot to add my API key. So let's see.
It's a good error message.
It's a good
descriptive.
It's hey, I know what to do. So let's see here. How do I do that? If I go to API and secret key. So I have my secret key, but it's an unresolved variable. Okay. So what am I doing wrong here? Okay. I forgot to add my environment. And now I have my secret key. There we go. Let's see here. Click send. And okay, look at that. So we have our API object here. This is our payment intent. And let's see. So I got my cookies. If I wanted to have cookies, I got if I needed them, I got headers. I got test results.
You don't have any tests written, so you won't have any test results yet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You know, you guys were ripping on curl earlier, and I didn't want to say it, but like I like curl. I love curl, but I only ever work with very simple APIs. Like again, like the Rick and Morty. Look at all these headers. I know I just said that, but then it's like, and then do you want to see the CLI output? Like even your JSON response is pretty hefty.
Oh yeah. This thing's pretty low. I mean, 76. Yeah, and it could be a lot larger, to be honest. It could be.
Yeah, only 3 required headers, so it's not that bad. It's just like whoever's done documentation here did a really good job at putting in all the possible scenarios.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I like, curl's not bad. It's just if you have to do like a curl and then you need to take like something that you just got from your curl request and then put it into another curl. Yeah, like that gets old real quick. So not a huge fan of that. Okay, cool. So let me see. So this is the payment intents. So we create a payment intent object. You go into your Stripe dashboard and you can just go into a Stripe dashboard. Once you sign up for Stripe, just go to dashboard.stripe.com, log in. We process credit cards, but you don't need to use one to like sign up. It's free. So you can do that. But when you create a payment inside of Stripe, let's see here. You go to payments and you can see the object that you created, the payment intent thing here. And you see one for literally all of them. And we're seeing from Cecil Phillip that shell scripts are your friend. I mean, I guess. I feel like Python is my friend, Like, let's see here. He's also saying curl and JQ are a nice combination. So I actually have never really used, I think I've used JQ like twice. Do y'all have experience with it?
Nope.
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. Cecil, you're going to have to explain what JQ is. I'm sorry. And why curl and JQ are a nice combo. I can assume why, but it's a little different. Okay, cool. So we create our payment. Let's see here. And I guess like the thing is like when you create a payment with Stripe, you got to figure out some way to like add like a payment method, like a credit card or something like that. So let's go ahead and we'll try and do that too. So.
Yeah, so you kind of glazed over it there, but what you were just looking at on the dashboard was the payment intent we just created from Postman, right? Yes. You sent off that API request, and this is the intent to complete a payment for $10 at some point. So that's that $10 in the USD we put in a minute ago.
Yes, that's a really good point. I've probably been in payment intent land for a little bit too long.
Yeah. You're the expert's expert. But yeah, so now the next step, what like you're saying, is to take this and now you need to complete the payment by telling Stripe what you want to send the money across with. So whether it's a credit card or a debit card or a bank account or Klarna or all these other things.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's do that. So in order to do that, though, we have to like, so you got to create it, right? So you create the payment intent. You also have to like actually add in the credit card details, and in order to do that, you have to update the payment intent. So luckily enough for us, we just have this update a payment intent endpoint here, which makes that pretty easy. But like one of the things. One of the things I don't like about curl, which I would probably have to do right now, is I'll have to like get the payment intent ID. Like generally when you see like this thing, colon and then either a colon ID or like a colon and then some reference to a Stripe object of which a payment intent is one, that means you need to pass in its ID. So we kind of have to do this thing. And this to me feels as bad as using curl.
Instead of pasting it there, you can also do it in as a path parameter. If you just undo that real quick.
Yeah.
And undo one more.
Yep.
Maybe. It might be one more. Okay, so you were saying the colon intent. If you go under the params tab.
Params? Where am I?
On the left, the first tab underneath the HTTP method.
Yes.
So intent is a path variable, and now you can plug in hard coded in to the value right there.
Oh, I did not know that was a thing.
And that cool. Just gives you a little bit more visibility so that the next person that comes in knows, oh, okay, I need to copy and paste update the value for the path variable instead of just, sometimes I don't know, like, oh, I don't know what that means by just the raw characters.
Sure.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I had no idea that was a thing. Cool. So if I go ahead and let me see, I'm just going to run this with nothing in it. I wonder if it does anything. Okay. Wow. That does work. Well, obviously it works. I didn't believe you, Joyce. I wasn't sure. Let's see. Cool. Okay. So we have our payment. We just updated it, but we didn't do anything to actually mutate it. So it didn't do anything. So we need to like figure out some way to add a card to it. So to add a card, let's see here. In the Stripe docs, let me go into the Stripe docs. There's a bunch of test cards here. Oh goodness, I didn't know you could do this.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they just copied it for me. I don't think I can actually use 4242 though. Like you can't just like send Stripe like a credit card number over the wire. Like that's not a good idea. So
yeah, there's security reasons why you probably don't want to be passing credit card numbers in plain text, essentially.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. So we wouldn't actually want to do that. We would want to have like a tokenized version of the card. That's when like you use one of Stripe's like front end tools, like one of its elements libraries. That's what they're called, to like tokenize the card securely, so it doesn't touch your servers, doesn't touch anything that you're doing. That keeps you out of what's called PCI scope, but probably going too far into like payments land. TLDR is like you don't want to mess with raw credit card numbers. You'll have a bad time. So I need to find some test cards here. So let me see here. There should be a test card 44242. So this is the card number. And then if you want to like test it with like a backend API call, you're generally going to use these payment method things. So I can grab this one called PM Card Visa. I think this should be 4242 as well.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
if you're building a web application to do this, you would embed a form on your web page that your user would type in a credit card number, using the Stripe library would take that credit card number and tokenize it so that when you send the API call, it wouldn't send 4242 across. It would send some ID number like PM underscore and then some string of characters. That's more secure than sending the credit card number because you can identify the card number from it, and maintains that security across the wire.
That's exactly right. So if we go look at this, I think we're still using the same like payment intent. It's this thing ends with JUK, and over here it's still JUK. If we click send here, and okay, so that didn't fail. And if we refresh it, it should probably still be incomplete, but ideally it'll have a payment method. So or maybe it will be complete. Nope, it's incomplete still. Okay, cool. All right, so our last step is, let's see here. If we go down here, so we saw that we added a payment method, we updated it, and now the status is requires confirmation. So like credit cards, there's like these, two things you got to do. You got to authorize it, and then you got to like confirm or capture it. And generally, a lot of times, like APIs will do both, and you can tell Stripe to do both if you'd like, but I forgot to. So I'm going to have to do this thing called capturing it. So, or confirming it. We'll do both just to be safe. Let's see here. So I'm going to use the trick that Joyce taught me of the params. Is there a way to set all of the intents, to set the intent for all of them at once?
Yeah, so instead of angle bracket string, you could make that a curly brace variable.
Okay, let's do that.
Oh, wait, not there.
Oh,
where did it go? It was just in the value next to there was a angle bracket string earlier, but yeah, right there, curly brace.
Okay. So something like that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, and then you can add the variable right there.
Yeah, that's actually new. So see how it's... see? That's muscle memory, Charles.
Yeah, look at that.
See how it's highlighted and it shows you it's unresolved? There's a little tip there that you can add it, and then you can, once you define it, you can update the scope to environment.
Oh, nice. So this, and then... Okay, so that's super useful. Let me go grab this. And now we have a value. And if I set the variable, okay. All right, this is looking good. Go ahead and click confirm. I have to provide a return URL. Okay. All right, let's see here. So actually, be real with you. I don't know where the return URL is. Here it is. Let's see. Yeah. So when you use, I think this is because like I use automatic payment methods. That's like aligned to a very specific it's aligned to like one of those front end elements that Mike was talking about earlier. And that element automatically like redirects you once someone completes the payment. So there you go.
Yeah. So in a web app, this would be which page is the, hey, your payment is completed screen, essentially.
Yeah.
So it might be a receipt or a, thanks for your order, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, right. So I guess like we'll just make this example.com. Okay. All right. So now this is confirmed. And if we go to our payments one more time and we refresh, ideally it won't be complete. All right.
Look at that.
There it is. So this, like, I don't know. I feel like this API flow is, again, it's a little bit more complex than like the one that people tend to use, which is checkout, but you can totally get it done. And it's, I feel like, a lot easier to follow if you do it in Postman, because you kind of have everything kind of here.
Yeah. We did a couple extra steps there that you could feasibly kind of mush into one in a production environment too, where you have the card and you want to confirm it all at once. You can kind of do that in less steps if you need to. And, we sent off the one API call also to update the payment intent without really updating anything, which you don't necessarily need to do, but it's a really good demonstration of how that API works. It just does what you tell it to do. And if you don't tell it to do any updates, it's just going to give you back the same intent.
Totally.
And one other thing I do want to show you, because I think it's helpful for anyone building their own apps, is the code gen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is that this one?
Yeah. So like Cecil's super high on curl, like here's the curl request, but also if you go under the drop down, you can select like your favorite framework, and then it'll transform the API call, especially if you have like those bazillion headers or those bazillion parameters, like you'll be able to just generate
That's pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah.
This is very useful. So okay. Let me see. I feel like
It's at the API call level though. So like if your flow was like, was it 2, 3 API calls?
3. We probably could have. I feel like we could have got it done in 1, but yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
was
can
3.
stuff it all in a 1, get everything working the way you want, and then just generate that API call.
Shoot, let's try that then. Let's say I'm going to go with curl as opposed to let me see. I'm going to go with curl. But like let's actually try that. So we did an amount of 10 USD.
Yeah.
Automatic payment methods true. Confirm true. What else did we miss here?
Your redirect URL?
Yeah, we got to do the redirect URL.
Or return, maybe. I forget what it was.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, I wonder if y'all can hear my computer.
It's very faint.
Oh, it's like it's
working
it
hard.
sounds like
there.
my computer's about to lift off. Like it's I feel like I think it's a 2017 machine, so it's like it's up there. Okay, cool. So I am going to try and do this now. So we went the hard way of doing this. We're going to go and try the easy way. So we got the amount of currency.
Did you put a payment method on it?
Oh, that's a really, no, I did not. We were going to end up in the same spot. So let's see here. I think it was PM. I'm not going to guess.
Yeah, I never remember.
Yeah, I think it's PM card Visa. Let's see here. Okay, cool. So we're going to try this. Let's see if it. Maybe we just do it from curl.
There you go.
So, yeah, this is a little easier to see because it doesn't have 100 parameters too.
Yeah. Charles, why don't you give this one a different amount just for this example, just so we can tell it apart from the last one?
Yeah, totally. Let's make it $100. Actually, let's make it $99.99.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, it updates pretty quickly too. Okay, cool. So I want to grab this and put it in my terminal here. And here's the test. We'll see if this works. Okay.
That looks pretty cool.
Yay, curl.
We did it. I mean, we used Postman to build a curl, but still, it's pretty cool that you can do that. I mean, curl is just one of the languages that we can use. And if we go look at the payment, we should see a $99 payment here.
Yeah. Nice.
So we have our test payment. It went through. We have 4242. That's the card. And you can see this is pretty real because there's a fee. So awesome. I mean,
that's great.
Yeah, I would not have. Yeah, only one API call. And you know what though? But using Postman made it a lot easier to get to.
Yeah, this is a really cool example of like the end-to-end. Like if you had never seen Stripe's stuff before, you could imagine finding the API, doing the fork thing, and then figuring out how to create a payment intent. Even if it took us 20 tries to get to the right curl command eventually, like you've generated the code to do it, and all you've got to do is grab that and inject it into your code base somewhere, and you're in business. That's really cool.
Yeah. Oh man, I wanted to ask Joyce about flows. I don't know if I don't think we have enough time to actually do any flows. But can you tell us more about it?
I don't think we do just because of your auth, like doing that, but you should totally make a flow for your public workspace. You have that cool demos collection. You should absolutely make those in visual representation.
So what exactly does, so I've always wanted to like put a flow together. I haven't used it yet, but like, is it mostly that you can do a visual representation of the flow for the most part, or?
Yeah, so initially we had 3 API calls. Eventually we whittled it down to 1, but say you have 3 explicit API calls in your sequence. Some people can visualize it in a collection. You copied and pasted your payment intent ID to create a new variable, but you can also programmatically script that, capture those values, and then create variables. And so I think, sorry, I'm disoriented when I'm looking at something. So yes, it's a visual representation of that API execution. And we call it like low code, no code. And of course, everyone always thinks that's for people that don't know, how to work with APIs. But I've seen huge uptick on devs, especially in developer relations, like our line of work, because you're trying to demonstrate to people how to do something. And if you can see the actual workflow, even if it's sequential, but especially if it's like branching and looping, it's really kind of neat to watch the data flowing through.
That's pretty, how does the branching, is there a coding part to the branching, or does it like look at the response? How does that work?
You can conditionally look at the response, but if you wanted it to just go in an endless loop to lift off your machine, like you just drag a noodle, you just drag a connector pipe and then connect it to a block. It's all drag and drop. So you create blocks, and then each block can be like sending a request. It can be capturing data, setting a variable, and so forth.
Yeah. Can you use that to interact with multiple APIs in one flow? Like different companies' APIs? So if it was Stripe and Airtable or something like that?
Absolutely. And like that's a really great visualization too, because a lot of people think the collections, like you have your API reference, but you could easily have like integrations with third parties described in the collection. You could have like parallel execution.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, you can do a lot with that.
I mean, it's just a visual representation, but I think because it's on a canvas, people think about the flows differently, think about what's possible differently.
Sure. Yeah. I've been working with and building some demos for our, we'll call it low code and no code community lately. And it's funny what creating some visualization layer for things can really do for people who like see a command prompt and don't know what to do with it, but can definitely drag and drop things and put things into a flowchart that makes sense to them.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that's for the people consuming it, but then also for the developers, like I find it hard to like sift through logs and be like, where did my bug occur? And now you can clearly see X, here's where the execution stopped.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea. I'm going to have to play with that.
Yeah, people in developer relations are like, they get it immediately because they are so often in the position of demoing what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like DevRel uses it. I mean, I know it's a no-code tool and it's not just for people who don't code, but have you found that people who don't code sometimes use it as well? Like, I don't know, like PMs and maybe support people, or it's mostly
the feature is still in beta, so you have to kind of like comb through the documentation to understand how it works. There's a little bit of like self-documenting, so like you might figure it out. But right now it's people who do code, developers, because you still have to understand how APIs work. You like the example, Mike, you were saying about connecting with like an Airtable or something. You have to understand how it's possible to talk to 2 different APIs, jam something together, and then send it off again. And I think that
sure, it's a little abstract.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That's pretty cool. I definitely have to check that one out. Maybe next time, I don't know, we can do flows. That was originally one of the things that maybe we thought about covering. But I mean, just in general, it's been pretty cool. Just, I don't know, using Postman to figure out how to mess with APIs. I haven't used payment intents for a while, so I guess that's pretty representative of how it works. You just mess with it and you change things, and it's just easy to change because it's GUI,
Yeah, but kudos to your API team for having meaningful error messages. I think, I mean, maybe that goes hand in hand with your company's culture of having good docs, but like it just being like, you're missing this thing. Here's a parameter that you need. Like, okay, why doesn't everyone do that?
Yeah, I think actually, am I still sharing my screen? one of the things I like doing is just trying out seeing what type, how, I don't know how good they can be. So like, I don't know, if you were to make the currency like 4 letters, I wonder if it would even, I don't know. Yeah. So it'll be like, hey,
Whoa.
that's just straight up wrong. Here's what you can
And then
do.
it provides the ones in the message.
Yep.
Chef's kiss.
Or I don't know. There's a bunch. There are different. If
Put
you
a
have a lot of
letter. Put a
parameters.
letter in there.
Oh yeah. Let's try it.
Will it know?
There you go.
You
Yeah.
should have
play
a
with
string
the-
that's how smart is the Stripe API.
I want to throw it in there. So it's like, you need an integer.
Very nice.
But I mean, even some integers don't work. So like, if you try to process a penny, I don't think you should be able to do that. And oh, it just says no valid payment method type. So I guess there's some priority there. But yeah, lots of errors. And generally, I think if you build an API at Stripe, you got to have meaningful errors for all of the different cases. So I don't know. Maybe CJ will talk about that at the API first design and development workshop. Maybe y'all should show up.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I don't know. Super cool. Well, that's it for me. Do you have any final, I don't know, some words to leave us with, Joyce?
I don't. I feel like thank you so much for inviting me. I love having the chance to interact with other API communities or just people that are fans of APIs. And it's such a pleasure watching other people learn about APIs, even things like trying different parameters or like some of it's like, yes, usability testing. I can like provide feedback to the product folks, but it's just really fun watching people interact with an API and watching their eyes light up. Like even something silly like watching a curl, like exporting a curl request and then seeing it execute properly, I think is enjoyable. So yeah, I love these types of events. Thanks for inviting me. And I hope that some of the folks will be around in San Francisco, or we're going to be over in Bangalore in a little bit too, in New York City. So events are back.
Awesome.
Joyce, if our viewers want to find their way over to Postman, where's the best place to go?
Like our website?
Mm-hmm.
Postman.com. Yeah. So Charles was in the web client. So if you're there and you're signed in, you'll see you won't see Postman.com. You'll see the actual web client that Charles was looking at the very beginning. But yeah, come on over to the dark arts.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, and if you want to get started with Stripe, obviously stripe.com is the place to be. Both tools are free to get started with, and can get yourself into the types of trouble you're trying to get into from there.
Totally. And you can do a little bit of both by going to the Stripe Dev community workspace on the Postman API Network. Why choose one? Do both.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Joyce, so much for coming and telling us about Postman and teaching me something about Postman that I didn't know about. So super cool. Thanks again. And check out the next Dab Chat. I think it's going to be in 3 weeks. Until then, have a good one.
Goodbye.
Bye.